This book began with Josh Prager's book, The Echoing Green. After reading Prager's account of Thompson's shot heard around the world, I wanted to write an article about other dramatic season-ending home runs, and I came across Hank Greenberg's grand slam to clinch the pennant for the Detroit Tigers on the final day of the 1945 season. In researching that article, I discovered there wasn't a definitive biography about Greenberg, even though all these years had passed, and I thought he deserved his due in order to preserve his place in history, and that's how this book came about. Finding sources to interview for this book wasn't easy. Greenberg himself died in 1986, so an interview there was impossible. But I did manage to speak to his two sons and his daughter, as well as his second wife, Mary Jo, who survived him. I also managed to track down a number of teammates and players who played against him in that era, the 30s and 40s, as well as a number of fans who would watch Greenberg play. In speaking to these people, who were in their 70s, 80s, 90s, even one guy who had been a cop back in 1938 with the Detroit Force, who sat on the bench to keep fans away from the players, who was 100 years old, I had a chance to hear their stories, and in listening to them, I had the sense that maybe they were telling these stories for the last time, and I felt this responsibility to record them so that their stories and Greenberg's legacy would be recorded and not lost to time. A lot of attention has been given Hank's decision whether or not to play on the High Holy Days in 1934, when his commitment to his religion came into conflict with his commitment to his team, which was made more difficult by a promise he made to his parents not to play on the High Holy Days, and his team's chance to win a pennant for the first time in 25 years. He resolved that dilemma, famously, by playing on Rosh Hashanah and hitting 2 home runs to help his team's cause, and then sitting out on Yom Kippur by the time the team had clinched the pennant. But I think a more telling incident about what Hank's religion meant to him as a young man occurred 3 years later, in 1937, when, by September 15th, when Yom Kippur rolled around, he had 161 RBI, which he considered the most telling statistic of a player's value to his team and his own personal greatness. He was on pace to tie Lou Gehrig's single-season American League record of 184, and to date he played in every single game. But he decided to sit out Yom Kippur at the risk of not achieving his goal, and it did end up costing him. That was the only game he missed that year. He wound up an RBI short of Gehrig's record, but he was content with his decision, which I think says more about Hank Greenberg and what his religion meant to him as a young man than most people are willing to give him credit for.